Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to live stream at the Upper Room. My name is Ron Strand, and I've got a wire hanging here, and I'll figure out where it's going to go in a minute. But anyway, we're glad you're here and watching tonight. If you're watching from Victoria's page and you don't know who I am, my name's Ron Strand. The Upper Room is a 501c3. We're based in Orange County, California. And we do events on a once per month basis. We do live music, we do comedians, we do speakers of note. And when COVID hit, our venue became unavailable to us, like so many things. And we've retooled, and we've been doing live interviews every week since then. But if you want to know a little bit more about the Upper Room, go to theupperroompresents.com, theupperroompresents.com, and you'll find out what we're doing there, and we're hoping to get back to our live events very soon. And so if you're watching tonight and you want to tune in and ask a question, just feel free to do that. Like us on Facebook, and we're also streaming on YouTube. And if you would, go to our YouTube page and subscribe to it, because we do this every week, and we've got some great guests. Last week we had comedian Ron Pearson, and he's just one funny guy. And the week before that, we had Jeff Allen. We actually replayed by accident, his performance at the Upper Room from last April. And but it got a lot of hits, so we're happy about that. And by the way, if you see the new backdrop here, that's the first time we put it up. That is a shot of Laguna Beach, California. And no, I'm not looking out my back window. I wish, but we figured, we're coming from California in the evening, and it's just a beautiful shot. So we put that together. So we hope you like our new backdrop. Hey, I'm really excited tonight about our guest. I've just met her briefly just before I came live here, and I've known about her for a little bit, and known about her organization, and I'm really excited to hear about it. She's a national speaker. She speaks all over the country about Save the Storks, which is the organization. She's got her own riveting story about her own experience with abortion. And this Save the Storks is a phenomenal organization. We're going to talk about what her experience was, her story. We're going to talk about abortion and so forth, and just kind of the whole industry of abortion. And we'll give you some information about Save the Storks. But we'd like to get right into it. Would you welcome my, I was going to say my good friend. I just met her, but she's going to be a good friend. Would you welcome Victoria Robinson? There she is. Hi, Victoria.
Hi, Ron. Thanks for having me. Good.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I think where I became aware of you is, on Facebook, you get all these requests. What do you call them? Suggestions, people that you might know, because I start seeing, oh my gosh, this person knows so many people that I know. So I thought, well, I'll reach out and give you a friend request, because I liked the organization that I saw that you were with. And so I've been wanting to get this together. I called you last week and you said, yeah, I'd love to do it. So we're so thankful that you're here and you're doing this.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm always just honored anytime I'm asked to share. So thank you guys so much. And thanks to Marisa. Happy birthday, Marisa.
Oh,
your producer.
Stole my thunder. I was going to give her a happy birthday.
Hey, you gotta be quick with me, Ron.
That's right. No kidding. My trusted assistant and the producer of our show, Marisa, it's her birthday today. So wish her a happy birthday. So how have you been doing out there since the COVID thing? How's it done with your work and getting out and speaking and so forth?
Well, it's been very interesting. I've been incredibly encouraged by what PRC's pregnancy resource centers are places where I speak a lot, churches and places like that. But the pregnancy resource centers, I probably had about 12 banquets to do for them this year. They were all canceled in person, but many of them did virtual banquets. So it was definitely different to put my camera, my phone, and talk to an audience of nobody, just me. So that's been very different. And I don't like to, every time I speak, Ron, there's always something different, because every place I go is different people. Yeah. Yes, my story's the same, but there are different ways to tell it. And so I wanted to make sure and personalize each one of them. And I had one speaker friend, I won't say who he is, he's a great speaker, and he said, wait, you're doing what? Why don't you just do one video of yourself speaking and then just do a separate video to personalize it? And I'm like, I can't, then I won't have the same outfit on.
Yeah,
Plus,
it can, doesn't it?
yeah, so it's definitely been different. It's a little challenging, but I have been so happy to do it. And like I said, very impressed and proud of the Pregnancy Resource Centers for stepping up and getting very creative and innovative to make sure people know that they're there still and available to help anybody.
That's wonderful. Well, you know, there's nothing more powerful than the word of a personal testimony. And when I read, and we're going to talk a little bit about the book that you wrote called They Lied to Us, which is a riveting book, and we'll promote that a little bit later. And you didn't ask me to promote it, I know that, but I would love to promote it.
I didn't even know you had it. I didn't even know you had it. So thank you for supporting.
Well, I did. I ordered it and I read it on a plane ride last week on the way to Nashville, and I was just stunned by these stories in this book. Are just incredible. But I thought we would start with your personal testimony, because you came into the whole crisis pregnancy by personal experience. And maybe we could hear a little bit about your story tonight. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, and I'll intersperse questions in there. And if you know, need some clarification.
Well, as you said, the work that I'm involved in, I've been involved now for 23 years. And I came about it, unfortunately, very honestly, by the way I came into this cause, if you will. Over 33 years ago, I was a single mother. My husband at the time decided he just didn't want to be married anymore. And he just told me, I'm out of here. And he left me to be a single mom with two little girls that were 3 and 8.5, 9 months old. So, you know, he wasn't the best guy. When I was pregnant with our second daughter, he physically assaulted me, kicked me in the stomach, put me in the hospital because I refused to have an abortion. And then he left after she was 9 months old, which, to be honest, by then I think I was relieved, but I was also terrified because I knew I had these two little girls to take care of. And I was only working part-time, and now I had to go from working part-time to working 2 jobs just to feed them and take care of them. They were in daycare all day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. I worked as a real estate paralegal, actually. And it was tough. It was really, really tough working on weekends as well, just to take care of them. So I paint that picture for you because I was a desperate single mother. My self-esteem was shot. My husband left, and it was some really bad times.
So I want to intersperse a question here interject a question here, because when I was reading your book, you said that when you were pregnant for that third time, when you had the abortion, you were 21 years old, but you said you'd been married for 5 years at the time. So you got married pretty young.
I got married at 16. I wasn't pregnant. I was just real stupid and very naive. Yeah. I came from a broken home, Ron. My father and mother divorced when I was 10. It was an incredibly sad childhood up to that point. Anyway, my father was an alcoholic. He was very abusive to my mother, not ever to us kids, but he was not around. We never knew if we were going to have food. I mean, it was pretty rough. So at 10, when my parents got divorced, even though the home life was not good, it was devastating. And I wanted that family. I wanted to create a family that I never had. So I met my husband when I was 14 in high school. He was a senior. I was a freshman. He was the football captain and quarterback, and I was shocked he even paid attention to me. And then at 16, we got married. And it was the biggest, stupidest thing I've ever done. But my older 2 daughters are the best things that came out of it. Yes. And so I always say, Ron, that God gave me my daughters so that I wouldn't, for the rest of my life, going, what an idiot you were. Why did you do that?
Doesn't God have a way of just making the best out of situations that are not, good?
He does, because my older girls are just, I have 4 daughters now, and my older girls are I can't imagine my life without them. So if I hadn't made that decision at 16, they wouldn't be here. So I am thankful for that. All things happen for a reason. So when he left, it was really hard, and they were begging me to not work and stay home, and I couldn't. I had to work. Their father, when he left, never supported us financially. He would promise to show up for the weekend, they'd be sitting on the porch with their little suitcases waiting, and I'd have to drag them in after dark, and while they wept and cried and sobbed, wondering why didn't Daddy come again.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very bad time in my life. And the reason I like to tell that story is because I was a desperate woman. And when I met this man at one of the jobs that I had, we fell madly in love pretty quickly. And he said all the things I needed to hear. I was beautiful. I was wanted. I was desired. And 9 months into the relationship, I was pregnant. Now, I knew the outcome of a pregnancy. I had 2 children. I was already a mother, and I was a good mother. I loved my girls. I didn't work the way I did because I didn't want to take care of them, and I loved them. I wanted them to have what they needed. Right. But when I went to my boyfriend and told him that I was pregnant, he convinced me that I needed to talk to the abortion center there in Charlotte, North Carolina, because it wasn't the right time. We could have kids later once we got married, but I wasn't married. I was struggling with you're already struggling with the 2 kids you have as a single mom. It's not good timing for us. And he convinced me, as well as the woman on the other end of the phone at the abortion center, that this was the right choice. She actually said to me, Ron, when I shared my story with her, my struggles, my husband leaving, going through divorce at such a young age, she said, don't you think you'd be selfish as a mother to bring another child when you can barely take care of the 2 you have? It's not really a baby anyway. Let's get you in here and take care of it right away. And when you're a woman that's in a crisis like I was, like so many are maybe listening right now, yes, you believe what you need to believe. And I did. I believed what I needed to believe. And I drove myself to an abortion clinic on a Saturday morning because he couldn't even go with me. And I chose to abort my child. On the way there, after I paid a babysitter to watch my children, telling her I was going shopping, on the drive to the abortion center, I had my hand on my stomach, begging this, as the woman told me, blob of tissue and clump of cells, to forgive me for what I was about to do. I was talking to this child of mine saying, this is the best decision for you. I don't want to bring you into this chaos of my life, and I can't do that to you. So this is the best choice. And wow, it was the worst choice I ever made.
Well, here you are, a young woman, 21 years old, and you'd been married for a few years, have 2 children. Coming from a broken home, one of the things I think I read in your book today, it said something like, I think the quote was something like, I just wanted someone to love me again. And you talk about that boyfriend, how he just charmed you and you would kind of do anything for him. And so talk about the feelings that you had and what was going on when he was demanding that you get an abortion. And yet you're troubling. Were you a believer at this point in your life?
No, not to a believer. I mean, I was a Christian, as the majority of people in the country say today. I'm a Christian. Sure, yeah. Because at the age of 10, I was so broken, and I picked up a book called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume. And that changed my life in many ways. And one of the ways was I, as this young woman, started talking to God and saying, hey, will you listen to me if you're listening to this girl in this book? And so it kind of started that way. But would I say I knew Christ as my savior? Had I ever accepted him? No, not at this point. But Ron, I will tell you, before I chose abortion, I would have said, if anyone asked me, I was pro-life. I had friends who had abortions as birth control, and it would infuriate me. Yeah. And I did not understand it. And then here I was in a crisis pregnancy, not knowing what to do, desperate and vulnerable. And I was manipulated by my boyfriend and by the abortion industry.
Well, that had to really tear at you. I mean, that conflict within you, because you're wanting to do something because you're so desperately, as a young woman, wanting to be loved by this man. And yet, knowing what you were going to do was against what you morally believed.
It was. And I say this all the time. The woman who walks into the abortion clinic is not the same one who walks out. And that woman who walked in was broken. She was just waiting for one person to say, I'll help you, for my boyfriend to say, I'll help you. He never did, until after that afternoon, he called and said, don't do it. I've changed my mind. Let's get married. Let's have our baby. And I said, you're too late.
Wow. And then how did he react at that point? He probably was,
He was he was sad. I wouldn't say he was in shock. He couldn't attack me for it or criticize me for it because he's the one who talked me into doing it. But I will be honest, we never looked at each other the same, and we truly loved each other. We really did. He loved me. I loved him. I thought I wanted to spend my life with him. But I never looked at him the same, Ron, because he was the man who was supposed to love and protect me.
Mm-hmm.
But yet he allowed me to end the life of our child and let me take myself. I mean, I drove myself. I didn't tell anybody. And then I don't think he looked at me the same either, which I can't blame him. I think he probably thought, I can't believe she actually did it. So we never looked at each other the same. Our relationship started falling apart, deteriorating before our eyes. And it wasn't long later that we split up and went our separate. So here we were saying, we'll have kids later, we'll get married later. It destroyed us. And I will tell you that happens many times because the statistics show 9 out of 10 times where an abortion occurs, couples don't make it. They break up. And it's just too traumatic of a reminder of what you've done and what you chose to do. And I think it's very hard to look at each other the same.
Yeah, I can imagine that it changes everything. It just changes everything. And then you talk about in your testimony in the book, and maybe you'll expound upon that, but the whole experience of walking in to the clinic and what you went through. Describe that.
Well, when I first arrived, there were no picketers. Now, I'm not a picketer, not the kind you might think about, the ones with dead, aborted children on signs or telling women they're murderers. You will not ever catch me doing that. I personally don't agree with it. I don't feel called to that. If someone does, I'm not trying to knock them, but I would never do that. Even before I had an abortion, I would never do that to someone. But they weren't there that day. No one was there. There wasn't like a stork bus that we have at Save the Storks in the parking lot offering me options. There was no one there. It was a very quiet Saturday morning. But when I walked into the abortion clinic, the waiting room was filled. There were women everywhere, but no one was looking at each other. Mm-hmm. Everybody was either flipping through magazines or looking at their nails. No one would make eye contact, even though we all knew we were there for the same reason, because Saturday was the day they performed abortions.
Oh, really?
We call it now in pro-life, I call it their kill days, but that was their kill day. And so no one looked at each other. The woman called me into the room when she called my name, which I used a fake name. You know, I like to say that if you don't tell your mother something you're about to do, and if you have to use a phony name, that's called a clue. That you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. And she called me into the room. It was the same woman who'd spoke to me on the phone earlier in the week and secured the appointment. She could tell that I was struggling. I was crying. I couldn't hardly talk. I was very nervous. And I kept asking her, are you sure this is okay? Are you sure I should do this? I know the outcome of a pregnancy. I have 2 children. She took my hand and she said, it's going to be okay. You know, this is the right choice. Like I told you on the phone, you need to do what's right for your daughters. You can have more children later. You're young. This isn't what your boyfriend wants. This isn't what you need right now in your life. You think of all the struggling you're having. And she just went on and on. She was so compassionate and so talking with this sweet voice to me. And I said, so you're sure this is right? And she goes, you're so early. It's not even a baby. And do you really think our government would allow this to be legal if it could harm you in any way?
Well,
that's a whole nother discussion, Ron.
Yeah, it is.
And so then she said, when you leave here, and I'll never forget this, just don't ever think of this again. Forget about it. What a lie. I thought of nothing else. Yeah. And then as soon as I handed her the $350 cash, I had to bring cash. And that's how much the life of my 6-week-old baby was.
Well, and that's a question. Hold your thought, because I want to hear that. But the one thing that I kept reading in the book and all these testimonies is always they're dealing in cash at these abortion clinics.
Well, today I'm sure they take credit cards, debit cards, but this was 33 years ago.
Okay.
So they would only take cash. And so she, at least at this center, they took only cash. As soon as she had my money in her hand, and this, I'm not kidding, it was this sweet woman, but as soon as she had my money and put it in her money drawer and shut the drawer, She looked at me, pointed her finger, and said, "Now just remember, if you change your mind when you're on the table, we don't give refunds here, so you don't get your money back."
Oh, it's like the Wicked Witch, huh? Just
Total transformation before
told
my
you
eyes.
so. Oh my gosh.
Total transformation. And then I went into the next room. They gave me a couple Tylenol to take, took me into the procedure room, the abortion room, and the nurses got me ready. I was crying, lying down, saying, "Are you sure this is okay?" Or should I was looking at the ceiling. I wanted to say, "I want to get out of here." One of the nurses kept rubbing my arms. "It's going to be over. Just a few minutes, honey. You're going to be fine. It's just fine. You're doing the right thing." And the doctor walked in, barely looked at me, didn't speak except to tell me to abortion's graphic. I can only remember him saying, "Scoot down and spread your legs." And the machine started. It was over within a matter of minutes. The whole time I stared at the ceiling, and I was in shock that I was like this out of body experience, Ron. It's like you're thinking, am I really here?
Yeah, I can imagine.
So as he was leaving, I called after him and I said, "What was it? Was it a girl or was it a boy?"
Ooh.
And he just turned around and said, "I don't have time for this. You're too early. I can't tell you what it was." And he walked out.
Wow.
So they took me into the recovery room, and is what they call it. Said, "Lay on this cot. You can leave in 30 minutes." And I left within 5 minutes. That room, Ron, was filled with cots, and every one of them had someone on it. And the wailing that was in that room, I'll never forget it.
Oh my gosh.
And people were in shock. You saw shock on women's faces. You saw them bent over. I just had to get out of there. And when I got on the elevator, when the doors shut, I just fell to my knees and said, "What have you done?"
I think one of the most poignant things you said that I read in your book is when you just talked about when you asked the doctor what the sex of the child was. And then you said, I never saw him again except in my nightmares. And so that must have just haunted you.
I can tell you right now what he looks like. 30 plus years later, I can tell you exactly what he looks like. If I saw him on the street, I would know who he was. Very short little man, and with white hair, just small, just almost like a frail man. But he just had this sense of, to be honest, it was like pure evil. And when you think about it, and you're constantly going in room after room after room, ending the lives of these children and destroying these women in the process, I think you have to become what he probably became.
Well, it's the dirty lie of the whole abortion industry that they tell, and I'm reading some of these buzzwords that I or some of these phrases that kind of resounded to me when I was reading the book. And they were kind of common thread to all of those stories: being scared and alone, detached from the partner or the sperm donor, if you will. I don't know if we call him a father. I'm not sure of the right terminology there, but and that they tell you it's a blob of cells.
Blob of tissue, clump of cells.
Blob of tissue, blob of cells. And
they're trained in the terminology.
It's a procedure. And
think about it, Ron. Think about this. Do you think they're going to say, "Let's take you in the next room because we're going to go kill your baby now"?
Yeah, right.
They use specific terminology on purpose.
Sure. Of course.
The abortion industry trains. They're across the board. They have great marketing, and they have very, very well rehearsed training sessions for their abortion workers, because I have counseled thousands of women over my 23-year career. I have met tens of thousands of men and women across the country and the world. I've traveled and speak all over the place. And they use the same terminology with everyone. I haven't even met these people, but they're telling me the same verbiage that they were told that I was told.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. The other thing that you said that I thought was a very interesting statement is that, they put warnings on cigarette boxes, to tell you about the health risks of that, but nothing. And this is the government that puts these warnings on, but nothing about abortion.
Yeah, and they keep trying to say it doesn't do any harm. If you go and research, you can find those articles that have been written that say, hey, this is all a lie. These women we've studied these women, they're having no issues. Whatever. I mean, give me a break. I've been in this industry 23 years. I have been a counselor in the room with countless women and men as well, that have been completely traumatized by abortion. So nothing infuriates me as much as that, when they try to feed this lie to the public that abortion doesn't harm people. That is a lie. Not only does it end the life of a child, it kills the life of a child, a living, breathing human being. It changes the lives of those parents. And so I can't stand when I read about this, or when pro-choice people try to tell me, well, I read it doesn't hurt people. Get over yourself. Until you've been doing what I've been doing for this long, don't tell me my business, because it does harm people. Are there those that say, I had an abortion, I'd do it again? Of course there are. But the majority of men and women who have experienced abortion are dealing with the after effects and the ramifications of choosing abortion.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. And I saw, maybe this would be a good time to just interject a question, because I want to continue on that thread. But I've got a question here from Marisa. Can you bring up this question from Joe Parkinson? It says, question, having been responsible, because we're talking about the men, how it affects the men. Having been responsible for 7 abortions with girlfriends in my youth, I felt deep guilt. Do you have men involved in this ministry to share about their roles in these pregnancies?
Well, Joseph, first of all, I want to say I am so sorry for your losses. That's a lot of loss, and my heart goes out to you. But yes, more and more men are talking about this. More men are wanting to get involved with helping men like yourself. And I will give you my contact information. I want to make sure you get in touch with me, Joseph. I can connect you. But I will say this to you. I didn't know when I wanted to tell this story, but if it's okay, Ron, let's talk about the men and abortion. Yeah. When the father of my aborted child and I broke up, and we went our separate ways. Mm-hmm. And I knew that about his life, because we were still in the same circle. We had a lot of the same friends, but thank God we never ran into each other. Mm-hmm. Well, after 10 years of living with the guilt and the shame and the regret that I had, and the whole time hating him for what he made me do. Mm-hmm. And when I'd hear, oh, he's doing this, he's doing that, I would get so angry, because I'd think, oh, he just has gone on with his life, hasn't he? Forgotten about what he talked me into doing or forced me to do to a degree. But yet he's out there happy-go-lucky, and I'm dealing with the choice we made. Yeah. This was my mentality. Now, when I went through post-abortion healing, which we can get into that in a little bit too, but when I went through post-abortion healing, I felt, as I started writing the book that you keep referencing, thank you, They Lied to Us. Yes. When I wrote the book and it was about to be published, I felt like I needed to call him, because I felt like he needed to know about the book, because he'd probably hear about it, and just reassure him, I didn't give your name away. No one will know it's you. And so I called him. He answered the phone, and immediately he recognized my voice. I have a very unique voice, people tell me. So he knew it was me. Now, this is how many years later? This was about, oh gosh, over 10 years, maybe 11, 12 years later. And he started to weep. And he was weeping so hard, I could barely understand him. Wow. He finally said, I have been waiting for this call for over 10 years to beg you for forgiveness for what I made you do. He said, I should have protected you and our child, and I should have never allowed you to go through with that abortion. Can you forgive me? Was his first question. The second thing he told me was, I've been haunted by this for 8 years, and I've been in therapy I've been haunted by this for all these years and been in therapy for 8 years dealing with it. Can you forgive me? Now, in that moment, Ron, I realized, gosh, I haven't fully forgiven him. And so many people think that when you hold forgiveness towards someone, you're some big bad, person, instead of realizing unforgiveness is like taking poison, expecting the person who offended you to die. It really is, it's harming you. So at that moment, I realized I haven't fully forgiven him. So I did. And I told him, I absolutely forgive you. And then the second thing that I realized
What
that
did
I
that
felt.
feel like, though?
It felt freedom. It felt
Did it?
total free. You know, I'm not going to lie. As
Mhm.
a woman, as a human being, it felt validation for him to
Yeah,
say, I've been hurting too. Because
sure.
all these years I thought this was only my issue. So
Yeah.
the second thing that I realized was men are hurting too.
Mm.
And I felt like that the Lord spoke to my heart. And I know sometimes people think that's so weird that you say you feel like God spoke to you. Well, he speaks to all of us all the time. He talks to me through billboards, through music. I mean, I'll see something just when I need to see it.
Yeah.
So I felt like the Lord said to me, don't forget about the men. They're
Interesting.
hurting too. These babies had fathers. They didn't just have mothers. And whether the man paid for it, whether he talked her into it, whether he drove her, whether he didn't want her to do it and she did it anyway, so he supported her, or he didn't find out till later that she'd had an abortion. These men realize later what happened, and it hits them in different ways. So I want to say to Joseph, I am not encouraging you, Joseph, to call those women who had abortions. I'm encouraging you first to get help and go through healing. Once that happens, if you feel that's something you need to do, then that's between you and God. And if you're married now, your wife. But I'm telling you, do not reach out to those women until you get healing yourself. So I want to make sure that you do that. So ever since that day, Ron, everywhere I've ever spoken, and now it's been years and years since that phone call, I talk about men, and I make sure that the men know I haven't forgot about you. And they'll come to my book table and say, thank you. Thank you for mentioning us. A year and a half ago, I produced some videos for Save the Storks. I asked them when I first started, I said, listen, I want to produce videos with men telling their stories. And they were so gracious and said, what do you need? How much will it cost? Do it. And these videos have millions of views now. And I've gotten so many emails from their wives, from men's wives saying, thank you. My husband has never dealt with this. And he shuts off. He can't, commit to certain things. He's become a workaholic, different things that they deal with. So I want to make sure that men know there is help for you. Yes, I can connect you, Joseph, to men that I'm friends with, because I believe women should counsel women in this issue, but men should counsel men. So I have men that are waiting to help you, Joseph. So you get in touch with me, Victoria@SaveTheStorks.com. You write me, Joseph, and I will help you get the help that you need. And any other man that's listening, because you guys matter. And we've emasculated men too much in this country. And we have taken away from them this family unit, that they're not needed. We don't need them for anything. Yes, we do. Your role is so important. And men were made to protect and to take care of. And women were made to nurture. So Ron, when a woman comes to the realization what she's done, and she realizes she's ended the life of her own child, and when a man realizes I didn't protect my child, it's devastating.
Yeah. We don't think about that so much. The woman goes through the physical process of an abortion and then obviously suffers the emotional aspect. The man doesn't go through the physical aspect, but he does, well, hopefully they find that, that remorse. I'm looking at another comment here, which means that what you're saying is impacting and resounding to men. Here's DJ Randy, and I'm not sharing anything out of context because he put it on a public board here. Randy Johnson, I'm so sorry, Heavenly Father, please forgive me in Jesus' holy name. Amazing. So there's some real.
Well, can I just say to Randy, he does. Randy, God, he forgives all things, even abortion. And I believed the lie for over a decade that God would never forgive me he could forgive me for anything else, but not my abortion. And that's a lie. And so I will tell you that he does forgive you. And I offer the same help to you, Randy, that get in touch with me and I will help you find the help that you need.
Victoria, give that email address again, would you? And maybe Marisa, we could put it up on the screen too. But
it's Victoria@SaveTheStorks.com.
Okay, that's pretty simple. There it is, Victoria@SaveTheStorks.com. So guys, reach out to her, and there's some resources there. It's amazing. I didn't even expect to go in this direction tonight, but I've never even really thought of that aspect of it.
Well, I'll tell you, Ron, I spoke at a men's event. Have you ever heard of New Canaan Society?
I've not, no.
It's a men's event. It's not really, maybe it's like Promise Keepers, but it's a men's event. It's very successful throughout the country. And I spoke at their event when they were in Orlando, Florida. They had their national event, and they don't usually have women speak, but Save the Storks was one of the sponsors. And our president at the time said, I want you to come and speak. So I did. Hundreds of men were there. Wow. And we had a stork bus there outside. And after I spoke, I shared the story of my child, the father of my aborted child. I shared the story that I just shared with you, and a lot of other. I went into a lot more detail about things. There was a line in 95-degree weather in Orlando, Florida, Ron, that went around the building. They waited in line, some of them, for an hour and a half just to talk to me and to whisper in my ear. Some of them, I've never told anyone. I haven't even told my wife. Thank you. How do I get help? So I am telling you, I am determined to speak to the men and to speak to the world about these fathers who are hurting. And sometimes they don't realize some of the things they're doing, Ron, stem from an abortion in their past.
Yeah.
Just like the women, we call them post-abortion, symptoms, and they don't even realize they stem from that abortion, because majority of people want to bury the abortion. They don't want to think about it because it's too painful. But then their behaviors change, their attitudes towards people change. Men and women have a lot of the same symptoms, but some of them are just a little bit different. But there are so many people hurting, Ron. There have been 64 million plus abortions since Roe v. Wade. That's 128 million men and women who've been affected by abortion. Yes, as I said, I know there's always those critics that tell me, well, I had an abortion, it didn't hurt me at all. And then I think, well, God, you sound really angry to me. What are you so angry about?
Right.
This one woman, literally, she lost it on me, screaming at me, telling me, I don't know why you do the work you do. I had an abortion and there was nothing wrong with having it. I'm so glad I did it. She's in her 60s. And I said, well, okay. And I stayed calm, and I looked at her and said, so did you ever have any other children? She said, no, I didn't. And I said, so you never had other children? I said, well, I'm sorry for your loss. She goes, you don't need to tell me that. And then she got very emotional, but she was still angry. And she wanted to hit me, and I was glad she walked. I was glad she walked away, because I wasn't going to hit some 60-year-old woman. She's in pain. The woman's in pain and doesn't even realize it.
Yeah, you don't get that angry, unless there's an underlying issue there.
Right?
Exactly. Anger speaks very loudly, doesn't it?
It does. That was my point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. Let's talk about. Sounds like there's an airplane going over here.
That might be my.
Is that your air conditioner?
It just came
You're not
I'm moving, so I'm glad you can't see around me, because there are boxes and a hot mess everywhere.
Is that right? Well, that's you only see what we see, so we're good. Let's talk about the abortion industry. You just said that there was how many millions since Roe v. Wade?
About 64 million that we know of.
That's staggering. Staggering.
It's our own Holocaust, Ron.
It really is.
America's Holocaust. We are aborting 3,000 plus children every day in this country.
Yeah. So what is it about? How many? I figured by the numbers I looked on your website. Says 1,788 babies a day, so that's about 650,000 a year. That's staggering. That's staggering.
The numbers that I have been told, the numbers that I have read, are about 3,000 a day.
It's about 3,000 a day. Wow. So is there a typical demographic of a person, a young woman, who would go in for an abortion? Does it break down by race? Does it break down by religion? By socioeconomic?
It doesn't. It doesn't discriminate. And I would say 18 to 29 is probably the highest age range on average. But I've met women in their 40s who've had abortions. One woman that had an affair, and she didn't want her husband to know about it, so she was going to cover it up. And gosh, there was one woman who came to me, Ron, for counseling. She wanted an abortion and needed an ultrasound at our pregnancy center before the abortion, because that determines how much the abortion is going to cost. Mm-hmm. First trimester, second trimester, and yes, people, the last trimester. There are,
Oh,
we do abortions up to birth in this country. And if
yeah.
a child is born from a botched abortion, they can legally kill that child if the mother doesn't want the child, leave it to die. And when people tell me this doesn't really happen, well, wake up, because it really happens. Well, so these women are, of course, I don't know if you know how much you know the history about Planned Parenthood, for example. Margaret Sanger, who founded Planned Parenthood,
Yes.
she wanted to wipe races out.
Yes.
But she's a
Right.
woman that they celebrate. These abortion centers were put in poorer areas where there was a much bigger Black community and Hispanic community, because they wanted to wipe out races of people.
Yeah.
So it does not, I can't tell you that there's a specific, I've met Christians, I've met agnostics, atheists, I've met pastors' daughters, pastors' wives. There's nobody I haven't met who hasn't been affected by abortion.
It touches every socioeconomic and background, doesn't it?
It does.
It's to the pro-abortion people. It's become kind of their sacrament, hasn't it? It's a badge of honor for some of these women.
It is, and it's sad to me. I think, just as a woman I told you about, I believe majority of these women who are wearing shirts, "I had an abortion and I'm proud of it," are ignorant to the fact that they have no clue how that abortion affected them. To be able to wear a shirt like that, to be able to brag to your children, because there have been celebrities who have actually bragged and said, "Well, I told my children I wouldn't be as famous as I am today had I aborted." And I think to myself, do you hear yourself, what you're saying to your children? They've got to be wondering, well, thank God mom didn't abort me. I mean, how ignorant and heartless some people are. So I don't believe these women who are marching saying, "I'm proud of it and I do it again." I don't believe the majority of them are proud of it. I think they may not realize how it's affected them. Yeah, I'll give them that. But as I said, the fact that you can brag about the fact you aborted your child tells me there's something not right with you.
Something's not right. That "shout your abortion" was one of their phrases that in one of those marches.
It's sickening. It's sickening. It's wicked.
And you talked about live birth abortion, where, in some of the scenes that we've seen on television. I'm trying to think of his name. I think he was the mayor of Virginia. Not the mayor, the governor.
The governor, yes. He said, we'll decide with the mother. I'm sure as soon as he said it and he spoke the truth, he tried to reel it back in, but it was true.
How it just rolled off his lips. We'll keep the child warm,
keep them
comfortable, and then we'll kill it. Basically, is what it was.
Basically, well, Ron, remember last year when New York celebrated late-term abortion?
Right.
I think it backfired on them, because it started the conversation, and I had pro-choice friends calling me saying, "Is this true? Are we now going to do abortions in the last trimester?" I said, "We've been doing it. I've been telling you guys, but you didn't want to listen to me, because people want to have their heads stuck in the sand, because then they don't have to do anything about it." Well, you know what, Ron? You can't plead ignorance anymore in 2020. Okay? It's everywhere what abortion is and what it isn't. We know that science says at the moment of conception, that is a unique human being. That's not Christian. Okay, that is science.
That's right.
You don't get to plead ignorance anymore, people. No. It's right out there. It's the fact. So I'm not some radical, "Oh, you're that pro-life rat." I've been called all kinds of stupid names, and they're just because they think I'm exaggerating some of this stuff. And I'm like, you don't have to believe me. Look it up.
Yeah.
If you're going to stand for something, know what you're standing up for.
Yeah. Are abortions trending up or down in the United States? Is there a trend right now?
They're going down. I believe they're going down. And I mean, it depends on who you ask. Again,
right.
I mean, you're going to find everybody's got differences of opinion. The thing about this pro-life cause and the pro-choice is that there haven't really been real good studies out there.
Yeah.
I am so determined, Ron, to do my own study. And that's one of the things on my agenda in my career, on my bucket list, is to do a real study from people who've had abortions, and I'll report the truth, whether they had any trauma from it or they didn't, because it's just the numbers just aren't out there. I can tell you in my 23-year experience and from what I've seen, and I wish I had kept data all these years, because then I'd have a book to be able. So I know when I say what I say and people go, well, where do you back it up with? Where's your study? I back it up with my life. Okay. I back it up with my work. And I don't sit there and say to someone, well, hold on, let me get my survey. I mean, when these women are in a counseling room and they're pouring their hearts and they're in pain because of an abortion in their past, the last thing I'm going to do is say, hey, can I write that down? So, you know,
well, I know.
I get a little fired up about this stuff.
I could tell. Well, I read some of your posts on your Facebook page, and I'll get to that, because there's a few of them that I thought were very poignant and wanted to talk about. But my gosh, you know, we get the hour goes by so quick. We're already 46 minutes into this, but we haven't talked about some of the things I do want to go before and talk maybe briefly about. We've got a new Supreme Court nominee who's going to go through obviously a brutal hearing process, as we know they like to do. What's your thoughts on this nominee? And I don't want to get political. You don't have to answer.
Listen, here's my thoughts. If I could take these things off and you could watch me, I'd be doing cartwheels. Okay. And I haven't done those since I was about 18. So I think she's an incredible pick. Yeah. I think she's going to do a phenomenal job. I am incredibly happy about this appointment, and I think she's going to get through. And I think that I've said this once, I'll say it again. I believe that everything that happens goes through God's hands. And I am so excited about this time of life that we're in, Ron. A lot of people, I see the fear, and that makes me sad for them, that is the world ending with COVID and the election and everything else. I'm like, take a deep breath. He's still in charge. He's still on the throne. This is the most exciting time to be alive, in my opinion. And I think there's some big changes coming, and praise God for it. So I'll leave it at that.
Got it. Totally agree with you there. Let's talk about, there's a few things, but my gosh, so I got so many questions. Is there any other questions, Marisa, that we have that are pertinent that we want to go to? We get a lot of comments, not a lot of questions, but some of the things I wanted to talk about, I don't know how to quite word this, but is there something that you would say to mothers of young women that are maybe from 15 to, that are maybe still in the home, signs to look for? Is there anything like that you could,
I think you got to pay it. I have 4 daughters. Yeah. And one of the things that I always did and they're all gone now. My youngest is 24. My oldest is 38. I've got 8 grandchildren, 1 on the way.
Oh my God.
Which I don't think I was supposed to say that. Darn it. It hasn't been announced yet. Sorry. But anyway, so I got to tell you that I always taught my girls to value themselves. Yeah. And of course I'm in this work and to value life. So they grew up valuing life. But my daughters asked me, okay, mommy, what if I get pregnant and I'm not married? I said, I guess I'm going to be a grandmother. You can come tell me. So I think mothers, and fathers too. Fathers are just as important. Create a safe space in your home, a place where your kids can feel safe to come to you. It can't start when they're teenagers. It's got to start when they're younger. That way you have open communication. Because the number one building block for any relationship, Ron, is communication. The second one is trust. If you can have those 2 things with your children, then they're more apt to come to you. But signs to look for, if you see changes in behavior, don't go attack your child. Go and have a conversation. But if you have done the groundwork with communication and trust and teaching them to value life and themselves, it starts with them, that's going to be an easier conversation. The biggest thing that I hear from young people is, I don't want to disappoint my parents. And we've got to let our kids know there's nothing you can do ever that would change how I love you. Will it mean, yes, it wasn't the plans I had for you? Of course. But nothing you can do will change my love for you. And if you can create that kind of space for your kids, you're going to be more successful with them talking to you, whatever it is, whether they're pregnant or whether they're starting to dabble in drug abuse or alcoholism or whatever, and watch who they're hanging around with. Yeah. Be mindful of who your kids are hanging around with.
Yeah.
That's important.
Absolutely important. You had talked about your childhood growing up and your father being an abusive alcoholic father and absent pretty much, I suppose. What would you say to fathers in terms of their daughters? I'm a father of 3 daughters as well. And what would you say in terms of how fathers can, or I guess how important, maybe that's too broad of a question, but how important is the father's role in speaking with their children, with their daughters?
Well, Ron, the father's role is important with daughters and sons. And
Yeah,
as I said earlier, we've robbed men of how important that role is.
yeah,
And so what I would say to fathers is with your daughters, have a date night with her. You fathers teach your daughters how to be treated. You
yeah,
teach them how to be ladies. Mothers teach their daughters how to dress like a lady, how to put makeup on, how to be one. Fathers teach their daughters how to be treated. So dads, when you're treating your daughters well, and that dude up the road comes along and he's not treating her the way she should be treated with respect, then she'll recognize it, because she'll know just doesn't feel right. And if we can have daughters or fathers to step up and do that, oh my gosh, it's not only going to change her future, but it's going to change how she looks at herself. Tell her she's beautiful, dads. She
yeah.
needs to hear that from you. If you
They
don't
sure
tell her that guy, that's walking the hallways checking your daughter out, he's going to say whatever she needs to hear to get in her pants. I'm just
That's
being
right.
honest, because that's his
Well,
goal.
you're absolutely right. If they're not gonna get it at home, they're gonna get it somewhere else.
They are. And teach your sons how to treat women.
Yes,
And you do that, dads, by treating their mothers the way you'd want your son to treat
yeah,
his wife. And
yeah.
you also are teaching your daughters, when she's watching how you treat your wife,
Mhm.
that's how I want my husband to treat me.
Yeah.
Parents, you've got to understand the critical role that you play with your children. And listen, we're not perfect. I made lots of mistakes as a parent, but I have 4 daughters who all love God, who serve Christ. We don't always all get along. I mean, we're women, So, but they are amazing women, and
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for the people that they are.
Yeah, praise God. I know that feeling. Well, I'm a man in a house of 4 women, including 3 daughters and my wife. But so yeah, I've been around that. Let's talk about, because we've only got a few remaining moments here. Let's talk about Save the Storks. Tell us about the organization. I'm really intrigued with what they do. So go ahead and kind of talk about that.
Save the Storks is an organization that is literally revolutionizing the pro-life movement. And we're changing the dialogue. We're changing the conversation with love and compassion, rather than what some people think is a judgment or condemnation from women who are either choosing abortion, walking into an abortion clinic. Save the Storks also, when I started working with them almost 3 years now, they were on the same page I was. They're not about condemning. They're not about standing in front of abortion clinics screaming at women. So I knew that we were going to get along just fine.
Yeah,
So Save the Storks cares about the woman 100%.
yeah,
From that moment of conception to birth to even afterwards. That's why the partnership we have with pregnancy resource centers across the country. Now, we don't own the Stork buses, Ron. We work with the pregnancy resource centers to help them raise the funds to build Stork buses. And then they own them, and they park them where they want to park them. And then they're there with using the same kind of love and compassion that we do at Storks by
Yep.
offering these women a free ultrasound before they walk in an abortion clinic, and letting them know, hey, we can give you a free ultrasound here. And then 4 out of 5 women who step on that bus, they see their baby in an ultrasound on the big widescreen TV. They
Yeah.
hear the heartbeat through surround sound on these beautiful state of the art buses. And then they're going, what is that on the screen? Is that a heartbeat? Is that arms? Are those legs? And then they make that connection with their child. So understand that these women are about to walk into an abortion clinic. There's a Stork bus.
Yep.
They walk on the bus, they see their baby, and they cancel their appointments.
Amazing.
There are stories after stories after stories. I don't have the exact number right now. I know it's like over, I think 7,500, 8,000 now. I lose count. There's so many of women who've chosen life after stepping on a Stork bus. So I am very proud to represent them.
Those are amazing. And that, to me, that's what's revolutionary about it is you're taking that you're doing it near the proximity of abortion clinics.
Yes.
What kind of blowback have you gotten from protesters, or, I'm sure in different areas it's different, but
well, remember, we aren't the ones on the buses. With the PRC, the pregnancy resource centers, I call them PRCs, are the heroes. They're the ones on the front line, Ron. They're there week after week after week, manning these buses. And I've heard the stories of them being told to get away, but I've also heard the stories many, many times where Planned Parenthood will call to the police to say, get them out of here. And the police will approach them and say, you have every right to be here.
Yeah.
You don't have to leave, and we agree with what you're doing. I've heard those stories so many times. And you know what? Here's the thing, though, Ron. When I had a conversation, I got to tell you this really quick. I know we're almost out of time, but there was a guy that's pro-choice, very pro-choice. And we met at this dinner with a lot of people. It was a circle. We were working on a program, and he looked across the room to me, and he said, we'd never met. He said, oh, by the way, I Googled you. I know all what you're all about. I said, really? I said, tell me what I'm all about. And he says, you're one of those pro-life people, tells people they're going to hell or they're murderers. If they have abortions, you don't want them to have a choice. And he's going on and on. And I just listen. And I said, oh, really? Okay. Well, let me tell you about me. And his name's Jeff. He's told me I can share this story because he shares it too with his pro-choice friends. And I said, well, let me tell you something, Jeff. I hear what you're saying, but you'll never catch me screaming at women that they're murderers, as I've already said a couple times in this program. Yeah. And I explained to him the kind of person I am as a pro-life person. That is the old or the way that people view pro-life people like me that are advocates of life. And that's just not true. It's simply not true, but it helps build their narrative. So when I told him, I said, did you know that 64% of women feel pressured into an abortion and over 80% feel they had no other options? So if you're truly pro-choice, Jeff, don't you want women to know of all of their options? He goes, well, yeah, of course I do. I mean, I don't like abortion, but I just don't want anyone taking their rights away. If a woman wants to have an abortion, I said, okay, I hear you. So I'm saying to you, if I can offer women all the options, adoption, parenting, and I'll answer her questions about abortion so she can make an intelligent, informed decision. Isn't that what you'd want? Because 64%, remember, Jeff, feel pressured.
Yeah.
And he said, well, gosh, maybe I'm more pro-life than I thought.
Interesting. Wow.
And the next thing he said was, and it was a long conversation, but that was Reader's Digest. He said, this is one of the best conversations I've ever had about this issue.
Wow.
I don't feel like you were condemning me, judging me. You never got mad at me or yelled at me. And I said, yeah, because what good is that? I mean, that's not me. I get passionate about stupid people who don't know what they're talking about. That makes me mad. But I want to have conversations. So if we can start the conversation in a respectful level, Ron, it can change things. It'll change hearts and minds of people. And that's when abortion will become unthinkable.
Well, and I think what's amazing is, tell us the statistic of how many women walk into that bus that walk out and do not have an abortion.
4 out of 5 women who step on a Stork bus.
80%. That's amazing. That's amazing.
It is.
And it's about educating them and then seeing that there's an actual baby, an actual child.
Because Ron, you cannot deny a heartbeat. You cannot deny arms and legs. So when women have been told the lie that it's a blob of tissue, a clump of cells, it's not really a baby. You're not far enough along. Or they tell them, they don't let them see the ultrasound pictures in an abortion center.
Of course not.
They don't want them to see it because they know they'll jump off that table. So when they see it in a Stork bus, because we're not going to lie to them. We don't force them to look, but we don't hide it either. And when they see it, they're shocked. I've been in the room. I've been in the room when a woman says, wait a minute, that looks like a baby. Yeah, that's your baby.
Yeah, amazing. Oh my gosh, Victoria, this hour is swept by so quickly. I had so many questions. Would you come back another time and explore some of this?
Absolutely.
This is so great. And Marisa, would you bring up some of the information? Folks, Save the Storks is an amazing, amazing organization. They're doing so much out there and being a resource to the pregnancy resource centers. SaveTheStorks.com is the website. Please pray about supporting these folks because they do it. What does a typical bus cost to outfit? And
Oh gosh, it changes, right? I think they started about 140, 150,000, and they go up to about 250, I believe. But
Wow. Yeah,
the operations team can answer that so much better than me. Things change all the time, and it just depends on how they want their buses outfitted.
sure. And any donation, I'm sure, is helpful. But if there's anyone there that can write $140,000, $200,000 check for a bus, that would be wonderful.
We'll take it.
We'll take it.
Make sure that you tell them you heard it here.
That's right. Let's see, we got Save the Storks, info@savethestorks.com is the email address directly to Save the Storks. And is there a phone number that we would want to give? We've got one.
I think the one that's on there.
Oh, she's got it up already. Okay.
Yeah, and then remember, if you need to get in touch with me, Victoria at Save the Storks. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and a lot of people. I have this love-hate relationship with Facebook and all of that social media, but so many people write me on social media, so I will always be there, even though it drives me nuts sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The social media, not the emails, the social media.
Exactly. Victoria, in the closing minutes here, and by the way, I'm going to plug this book. Let me get it right in front of it. It's called "They Lied to Us." This is by Victoria Robinson. It's a collection of stories. First off is her story that she told tonight, and it goes into greater detail here, and stories of, I don't know, 7 or 8 other individuals, and actually one couple that talks about it. And it's a riveting book. I couldn't put it down. But in the remaining moments here, because if there's somebody watching tonight, a young woman, I asked my daughters, I said, tell all your friends to tune in tonight. Or if they watch this later, because we get so many views later, even after this, and it's up on Facebook and it's up on YouTube. But if there's somebody that's facing a crisis pregnancy right now, what would you say to them?
I would tell you you're not alone. And in every city across this country, there are pregnancy resource centers in your area. Look it up. If you can't find it, reach out to me again. I will help you find it. But before you walk into that abortion clinic, make sure that you give yourself the opportunity to know that you have other options. Because I can tell you story after story after story of women, those that have said, why didn't I meet you before? Or even those that I've counseled who did end up choosing abortion, that call me right away and say, why didn't I listen to you? Get my baby back, Vic. Get my baby back. And I can't do anything. Abortion is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I have not ever met a woman who went through with her pregnancy, Ron, whether she placed her child for adoption, whether she parented her child, that said, I wish I'd never had that baby. Yeah. So you can do this. It's a very short amount of time, but I promise you, when you choose abortion, it will change your life forever.
Yeah, amazing. And folks, there's a resource there that you could reach out to with Save the Storks. Young ladies, if you're watching, anybody, guys, and we've talked about that tonight. It's a wonderful organization. Victoria, thank you so much for sharing tonight. We have come to the end of the hour, and we would like to. And one of the things too that I want to tell anybody out there that's watching, if you're watching and we're talking about faith tonight as well, because faith plays a big part in what we believe to be life when conception, at the point of conception, and as believers in Christ, we believe that. And so if you're somebody who's not walking with Christ, if you want to know more about what it means to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, would you email us at theupperroompresent.com? And we would love to pray with you. We would love to talk to you. We'd give you a Bible and kind of help you in your beginning. But it's as simple as saying a prayer, just saying, God, I'm a sinner. Forgive me. I receive you. I look to you as Lord and Savior. Come into my life and change me. That's the beginning. That's just the beginning. And God will do that. He's good at his word, and he will do that. And that's the joy of having a faith in Christ. Victoria, you're delightful, and it was a great hour. And I've got 5 pages here, and I was telling Marisa, I said, I got to make sure I got all these notes straight, but a lot of the stuff I didn't even get to. So next time that we get together. Would you do that again?
100%. Anytime, Ron.
Very good. Thanks for watching, folks. Thanks, Victoria. We'll see you next week, and watch for our next week who we're going to have on. We haven't announced yet, but we will. Thanks for watching live stream at the Upper Room. Take care.